So, welcome to the Adult Share Podcast, Dr. Bradley Nelson. Nice to have you.
Hey, Michelle, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I was just saying to you, gosh, these books that you've had, well, the emotion code has been around a long time. I'm really excited to jump into that. That's something I was a therapist and a coach for almost a little bit over 20 years, and I
Mm.
was introduced to the emotion code probably, gosh, maybe 10 years ago or so, something like that, or 15 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time ago, but it was magical with my clients. It was so fast. And I love that. I love the spirituality, the energetics of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into that deep today. I'm
Yeah.
excited to really get into it. What I want to know is though, first, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your background.
Mhm.
So prior to creating the emotion code, like
Mhm.
what led you up to this point? Because it's such a fabulous tool for our toolboxes.
Yeah. Well, really, my journey started when I was 7 years old. I was really sick with the measles.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother asked my father if he would pray for me. And so, knowing my dad, it was probably the first time I'd ever heard him pray. He was in real estate, and wasn't a preacher or anything like that. He's praying for me. And I had this miraculous thing that happened. I went from being really sick and just feeling really nauseated and feverish and just really ill. I mean, I was sick. The plan was, I knew because I'd overheard my parents talking. The plan was the next day I was going into the hospital. They were going to have me admitted.
Wow.
And so this change starts at the top of my head and it goes whoosh through my body to the soles of my feet. And I'm just instantaneously healed completely. And and I held my tongue till my dad was done praying because it happened in the middle of his prayer. He and I didn't want to interrupt him. And when he was
Mhm.
done, I said, "I'm better. I'm better." And they said, "That's fine, honey. Go back to sleep." Um, but the next day proved it to everybody. I was totally well. And so I was only 7 years old, but I remember that whole situation, that event, like it happened yesterday.
Mm.
Because to go from being really sick one moment to being totally healed in the next instant is just so bizarre and so impossible. So I learned that healing can take place instantly because it did for me. And I
Mhm.
also learned that there's a higher power that we can draw upon. Like my
Mhm.
father was asking for help, and I guess that's where the help came from. So that I filed all that away, and then at age 13, I ended up with kidney disease, and there was no medical treatment for me. And my parents were told that what I had was about 50% fatal, but
Wow.
there wasn't anything they could do. And they didn't do kidney transplants. That was a long
Mhm.
time ago.
Mhm.
And so if my kidneys were basically fighting for their survival. And if they died, then that was the end of me. So it was kind of a scary time. But my folks took me to see some old time holistic doctors who practiced out on the edge of town in a trailer house in the middle
Wow.
of a wheat field. And, and these doctors started working on me, and I started noticing, I could feel in my body that what they were doing was exactly what I needed. And my body started responding right away. And right away, these pains that were so extreme, they would just, I mean, completely knock the wind out of me or knock me to the ground. They started immediately to recede and become less frequent and less severe. And within about 3 weeks, I think I'd pretty much forgotten that I had ever been sick. My folks took me back to the clinic and they ran all the tests again and they said, "Oh, he's totally cured." And they hadn't done anything, but these other people had. So I decided, hey, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be a doctor like these guys. Well, then I was going to school in Hawaii. Uh, when I was younger. This was in 1980, and I needed one more class to
Mhm.
fill out my schedule for school. And the
Mhm.
only class that fit the openings in my schedule um, was a class on computer programming. And I knew nothing about computer programming. I wasn't interested, but I thought, all right, this class fits. I'll just take it. How hard can it be? It was like a half a credit or something. But I just totally fell head over heels, in love with programming and became a programmer. And back in the early 80s, I had a business called the Computer Tutor where I would go into people's businesses and they'd have a brand new IBM PC that they didn't know what to do with, like the most expensive paperweight in the world. And I would actually write the software to get it to work. And so that was really fun.
Mhm.
Well, so then more time went by, and it was eventually it was actually an answer to prayer, really, for me to go into the healing arts, which
Mhm.
I had kind of gotten away from that whole idea, but I did. I went to chiropractic school and graduated, got into practice, and because it had been an answer to prayer to go into chiropractic, I thought, okay, now that I'm seeing these patients, I could really use some help from up above. And so I developed this personal private habit of just silently asking for help with everybody that I saw. No, none of my patients ever knew that I was just having a momentary pause to ask for help for them, but
Mhm.
that's what I was doing. So I learned that that higher power, God or source energy or creator, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely aware of us and is aware of our lives and our concerns and our needs all the time. And I
Mhm.
know that's true because when I was in practice, there were times when a new patient would come in to see me and I wouldn't know how to help them, wouldn't know how to approach their problem. And I would offer this silent prayer, this ask, right, for
Mhm.
help and connection. And there were times when information would just flood in like
Mm.
an avalanche of understanding. That
Mhm.
didn't happen very often over all those years, but it did happen. And so gradually I was figuring out some really interesting things. One of the things that became clear to me was that the subconscious mind within each person is really a computer, but it's like an alien computer, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about, I've got my laptop here in front of me. It's
Mhm.
got a keyboard and a screen. I can see messages on the screen. I can put in, information with my fingers on the keyboard. So we call that a screen slash keyboard interface. If we look at a cell phone, like my cell phone here, that's
Mhm.
got a touch screen. So it's a touch screen interface. That's how we communicate with it.
Mhm.
But imagine climbing into an alien spacecraft that has no screens and no keyboards, but there's a computer there. How do you communicate with it? And Michelle, that is, I came to understand that these bodies of ours have this computer, this incredibly powerful computer built right into us. And that's the
Mhm.
subconscious mind that understands with a perfect understanding exactly what a person needs and what's really wrong with them.
Mhm.
And it remembers everything you've ever done, every
Mhm.
face you've ever seen in a crowd, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled. I mean, everything, every split second of your life is logged in this subconscious mind. Now, of course, we live in our conscious mind, which is just an infinitesimally tiny percentage, I believe, of our total intelligence. And so the vast bulk of our intelligence is the part of us that is automatic, that is running our body, keeping our hearts beating, creating millions of new cells every minute, and doing all these amazing things, keeping us alive. Well, what I learned is that we can ask questions of this internal computer and we can get answers. And that's what the emotion code and that's what the body code and the belief code now, that's what these are all about.
Mm. Mhm.
And so that's, if you think about it, I mean, imagine having access to like an internal chat GPT that
Mm.
knows everything about your internal body. If you have a certain vitamin deficiency, it knows it. If you're deficient in a certain trace mineral, it knows that. If you still have a little viral infection from, that sickness you had 6 months ago, it knows that too. It knows everything
Mm.
down to the quantum level and even beyond that, I think. And so, I mean, imagine being able to ask that chat GPT or that Google about what's going on inside of you, why you're having low back pain, why your neck hurts, why you get migraines, why you're still single and you're 40 years old, why you can't seem to make money, why you can't break through the glass ceiling, all of
Mm.
these things, why you're dealing with depression or
Mhm.
anxiety or phobias or why you have panic attacks, or what are the underlying root causes of your post-traumatic stress that are making it difficult for you to live your life? All of these things. I mean, if you're diagnosed with some kind of a disease process, I have absolutely come to the knowledge that that the subconscious mind communicates to us not through some kind of a screen like a computer, but through our symptoms. The
Mhm.
symptoms that we have, those are the messages on the screen of the body saying, hey, there's something wrong here. You feel it as a migraine, right?
Mhm.
Or as an inability to conceive a child, or as
Mhm.
digestive problems, or asthma, or whatever it might be, or cancer,
Mhm.
or whatever. But all of those things are just really symptoms. They're not really the problem. The problem is something else. And
Mhm.
so that's really what all this work is about. And I wrote the emotion code because I realized finally I had to get out of my practice because so much of our symptoms are due to our emotional baggage. And so writing the emotion code book was the first step. And then after the emotion code book first came out in 2007, about a year later,
Mm.
I woke up one morning and my mind was full of instruction, and the instruction was very specific, and it was, you need to take everything that you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn and make it available to everyone everywhere. And
Mhm.
that's what the body code is. And we finally now, I guess early last year, came out with the body code book. The
Mm.
body code book is it's a manual,
Mhm.
and it's really the manual for the body code system, which is an app that people can download. But what it looks like, I don't know if you can see that, but there are 6 different
Yep.
images here. And these
Mhm.
are the 6 different kinds of imbalances that we suffer from as human beings that cause all of our problems.
Can you
And so,
read those? I can't, they were blurry. I can see the images.
yeah,
I can't read them. So what are they?
one is
Okay, go ahead.
energy. Okay.
Energies.
So
Okay.
energies are things like trapped emotions, or
Mhm.
the energy of traumas that happen to us. Another category, of course, is pathogens. And
Mhm.
pathogens are, viral, bacterial, fungal infections,
Mhm.
mold,
Mm.
parasites, things like that. Another category is what I call circuits and systems. And this one has to do with the organs and glands of the body, the
Mm.
things like all the various systems, the musculoskeletal system, the
Mhm.
cardiovascular system, nervous system, and so on. But also disconnections that can happen between the spirit and the physical body, which is really
Ooh,
wild. You won't see that anywhere else.
I
Also,
love that.
yeah,
Okay.
misalignments. Okay.
What's misalignments? Is
Well,
that
misalign
spirit and
any
physical body?
tissue can
Oh,
misalign.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started out as a chiropractor, so I was mainly looking at misalignments of the spine, but then I found, gee, any bone can misalign anywhere.
Yeah, for
And then I
sure.
found, oh, it's not just bones, any tissue can misalign.
Mhm.
Oh, and guess what? When a tissue's misaligned or a bone's misaligned, there's usually an underlying cause for that. And that's
Mhm.
usually some kind of a trapped emotion. And so when you clear the trapped emotion, the bone will realign. Who would have thought of that? And then there's toxins, another
Mm.
category. And there's all kinds of toxins, unfortunately, in the world we live in. And then the last one is what we call nutrition and lifestyle. And that one has to do with, that's where you'd find things like vitamin, mineral deficiencies,
Mhm.
dehydration, things like that.
Mhm.
So, anyway, the beautiful thing about it is we can ask questions now, and anyone can learn how to do this. Anyone can find imbalances in their own body or in the bodies of their loved ones and friends and so on,
Mhm.
and fix those imbalances. Gee, what a concept! It had to finally happen because
Mhm.
the Western medical system, the pharmaceutical industrial medical complex, is actually really really good at treating acute problems, right?
Mhm.
Like, you break your leg, great, doctor will cast it, but then
Right.
it's the body that heals it. Um, if you're, something terrible happens and your leg's no longer attached to your body, well, if you hurry, they can probably reattach it, which is kind of unbelievable. I mean,
Mhm.
so they're really good at those kinds of really severe, life-threatening, really acute conditions. But
Mhm.
For the rest of it, not so much.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm taking notes. I have so many questions. So something that I did when I had a private practice was muscle testing.
Yeah.
I would get what's the unconscious belief that's going on. So I'd be muscle testing. My clients sometimes would know, sometimes they didn't. I was also trained in like Psych-K again, and I use the emotion code. In your book, The Body Code and the Emotion Code, is that still true? Do you have to know how to muscle test in order to do this work?
Well, uh, muscle testing, we teach all kinds of different ways to muscle test.
Mhm.
There are lots of different ways to do it. We teach people how to do testing on another person's outstretched arm. The body
Mhm.
will tend to stay strong if it's in a
Mhm.
congruent state. Like if I were to
Right.
say, my name is Brad, it would be strong. My name is Bob, I'd be weak.
Right.
But we also teach lots of different self-testing methods, like the ring and ring method, the hand solo method,
Mhm.
um, the finger pad test, where you're just, swiping your fingers around and it will get sticky or smooth,
Mhm.
depending on it's a yes or a no.
Mhm.
We also teach people how to use things like pendulums. I don't see one right here, but pendulums and
Yeah.
bobbers.
I normally
Any
have one here too.
Yeah, any
Yep.
kind of dowsing device like that will work. A lot of people find that pendulums are really easy to use.
So easy. I
Muscle
teach
testing
people how
is
to
a
do the
skill.
sway. You ask
Yeah,
yes, yes,
that
yes,
one
and you
too.
sway. I
Mhm.
just put that on social like a week or so ago. People loved it. That's so easy. I
Yeah.
remember having so many of my clients and they'd be like, I don't know. I'm like, stand up. I'm going to teach you how to do this on your own. Like say yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. So that's great. Okay. So I love this. I just want to touch on, you said the spirit and physical body. Did you say they get misaligned? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. So where this came from, really, the beginning of this for me was, first of all, I used to wonder, as a chiropractor, a person would come in and I would realign their spine and they'd feel great,
Mhm.
and symptoms of all kinds would go away. But
Mhm.
then, maybe a week later they'd come back and the same things would, in most cases, be out of alignment again. So I would
Mhm.
realign them again. And this used to kind of drive me crazy. And I used to wonder, well, wait, if all of these bones in the spine are surrounded by muscle and the muscles are connected to the brain, why doesn't the brain just realign these bones? It knows that they shouldn't be out of alignment. What's going on? I mean, I appreciate having a job and it's great.
Mhm.
I love realigning people. That was my job. It was fun.
Mhm.
But I used to wonder what's going on. Well, so then one day we had this experience where we have a daughter who's, my wife and I have 8 kids, by the way. And
Whoa, Dr. Brad. Woo! 8 kids.
hey, it's my wife, it's not me. But
You
we
had
love all
something
of
to
our
do with the
kids.
8 kids, just saying.
Yeah, well, they're all amazing. And in,
Great,
in
good for
fact,
you.
let me tell you something really interesting. My wife, we met in 1981, and five
Wow.
years before we met, my wife had given birth to a baby girl in Hawaii.
Mhm.
And she wasn't married and wasn't ready to be married. She was really young and didn't want to marry the guy. And so she gave this
Mm.
baby up for adoption, and it was a sealed adoption. Well, about 18 years ago, this daughter found my wife, and my wife always wondered, what she just always wondered what happened to that little girl, and it's a hard thing to
Oh,
give up a
yeah.
child. And so anyway, they found each other. And so we've been very connected with her and her family. She lives about 4 hours drive from us.
Mhm.
And she's got 5 kids now and a great husband. And anyway, her adoptive parents passed away in the last 3 years. And her brother, who was also adopted, passed away as well. So she had no immediate
Oh.
family anymore.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know, about a year and a half ago, I guess, we were talking with her and said, we'd really like to adopt you. And she said,
Oh,
well, I'd like to be adopted. So she's 48. We just adopted her last October. So
I love
now,
that.
doesn't that, it's such a cool story.
It's
It's
so
so
cool.
amazing. I mean, if you'd ever like to interview a couple of women that could tell you just the most amazing story, and it's just kind of a full circle kind of thing. It's really incredible.
So beautiful. Oh my
Yeah.
god. How they found each other even. I mean,
Oh
man.
my gosh, if we had time, I get to how they found each other, and the story, the whole story is just like unbelievable. I'd like to get it
You know,
made
it
into
really
a
makes
movie.
you it really and even listening to your story, we are clearly divinely guided. I mean, when we pay
Oh yeah.
attention, there are clues and cues everywhere if we're willing to get in the present moment and look
Yeah.
and notice, right?
Otherwise we miss them, you
You got to
know?
be in the moment, right?
You do. And you know what's
Yeah.
interesting is it's kind of almost like a muscle. If you
Mhm.
start, for example, if you start writing in your journal every day and asking yourself, okay, how have I seen the hand of the higher power in my life today? If you
Mhm.
start doing that every day, what will happen to you is that you'll, it will tune you in, and you'll start
Mhm.
noticing more and more and more
Mhm.
how there are miracles going on in your life all the time that you were just totally oblivious to, that it was going right by you. So anyway,
Yeah.
so here's the deal. So we have this youngest daughter who's 24 years old. And when my wife was pregnant with her, her name is Lizzie.
Mhm.
Um, when my wife was pregnant with her, she was really sick with morning sickness, and she was asking me to help her. And I was thinking about all the other patients that I had treated over all those years, and tried different things with to help them. And none of those things had ever really worked.
Mhm.
And so again, my habit was to ask for help. So I said this prayer, and I said, Father, if there's a better way to help Jean with this morning sickness, help me to know what it is, because nothing that I've ever tried has ever really worked. And I got this answer, and it was almost whimsical. And the answer was, well, you'd feel pretty sick too if you had this new life growing inside of you, especially if your brain wasn't connected to it. And that was the answer. And
Oh.
I thought, oh, so it's a connection problem. So what I did is I started testing Jean, and I just
Mm.
started talking to her subconscious mind and asking, okay, is your brain fully connected to the fetus? No. So what I would do is just swipe a few times down the governing meridian down her back
Mhm.
to reconnect her
Mhm.
brain to the fetus. Is
Mhm.
your brain connected to the fetus? Yep. Okay. Is your brain connected to the umbilical? No. And so it was the same kind of process. And so I had to make these connections in both directions, right? From the brain to the parts, four
Mhm.
parts, fetus, umbilical cord, amniotic fluid, and placenta.
Mhm.
And when I made all the connections in both directions, all of a sudden, instantly, the morning
Oh my.
sickness was gone. Now, a couple of days later, it starts to come back a little bit. So I checked her, and something had shorted out. I had to work on her one more time, like a week later, and she never had any more morning sickness. So I thought, this is amazing. And we've worked with lots of women, morning sick women, and they pretty much all say the same thing. The moment you remake those connections, they almost always say, all right, I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'm starving, because they've been, and I mean, it's not unusual. I've seen it many, many times where we'll work on a woman who's just ready to throw up. I mean, the back of her throat's
Mhm.
watering, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
make those connections again, and it's just gone. And like with my wife, sometimes you have to do it one or two or maybe three times. But we have practitioners now who just specialize in this, just work with this. They
Wow.
just work with women that are dealing with morning sickness. So anyway, so that's part
Wow.
of it, right? So think about
Wow.
that. Isn't that interesting? Now, so what kind of a connection is that between the brain and the fetus and those parts?
Mhm.
Well, you could call it a spiritual connection, an energetic connection, a quantum connection. I think those would probably
Mm.
all be
Mhm.
correct, right? I don't
Right,
think we
right.
necessarily understand the exact nature of it, but that was kind of the beginning, and that helped me to understand other things. One day, um, I had a patient who had fallen down this long flight of stairs and had been, really tumbled around and really kind of traumatized. And I was trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And I was kind of led through intuition,
Mhm.
um, to ask about her spirit. And what I found was that her spirit wasn't completely in her body. And so here's what I believe, right?
Mhm.
Um, we're spirit beings, right? Having a physical experience in this world. And
Yep.
so, yeah. And so our spirit is really who we are. Right now, we're inhabiting these physical bodies, but we know that when you die, your spirit leaves your body,
Mhm.
and and your body just decays, but the spirit lives on, and it never decays, and it's indestructible, I believe, and everything
Mhm.
else.
Mhm.
In fact, in the Body Code book, we talk about the study that was done back in, I think, 1905, where they would take people into this room when they were close to death, and they'd put them on this really, really fine scale. And they found that when people died,
Mhm.
they'd lose about 21 grams of weight.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, right at the moment of death, or sometimes shortly after.
Mhm.
And so their theory was that that was the weight of the spirit, or whatever
Mhm.
you want to call it, the soul or whatever. I refer
Mhm.
to it as the spirit, leaving the body. Well, so
Mhm.
anyway, what happens is sometimes the spirit can leave the body part way. I mean, you might be, I worked on somebody the other day, and I don't have a practice anymore, so I only work, on friends and celebrities and people like that, and people that I
Mhm.
come across that want help.
Mhm.
But this person had their they were 13% in their body. They're having a lot of physical issues and a lot of problems. But I mean, imagine if your spirit leaves your body completely, you're dead. What if your spirit leaves your body most of the
A
way?
little bit. Yeah.
Mostly dead.
Yeah.
And so you can have all kinds of problems. So, but
Wait,
fixing that is not a big deal. It's
what
easy.
is an example of that? How would I know if I'm working with someone and their spirit is a little disconnected from them, physically speaking? What are the
Well,
symptoms? Are there general
yeah.
symptoms that people have?
Not
Could be
really. I
anything.
mean,
Okay.
no, it could be anything. It could literally be anything because it's the spirit within us that
Mm.
animates the body. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, there's no specific thing I can point you to. It could literally be anything. And there's another kind
Mm.
of imbalance that can happen where the spirit can be in the body where it's supposed to be, but yet it may not be talking to its physical counterpart.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So, maybe it's your liver or some other organ or some other part of the body, and there's just like this communication breakdown that's happening.
Mhm.
Another
Mhm.
thing that can happen, and this is really interesting, and I saw this just recently, a couple days ago, where um, sometimes what happens is our heart, our spirit heart, not our physical, but our spirit heart will actually break. So
Wow.
that phrase.
Do you mean your heart chakra, your fourth chakra, or is this something different?
No, no, it's not the chakra. Think about it this way, okay?
Mhm.
Um, if, for example, Michelle, if we could look into your chest and see your heart in there beating,
Mhm.
it would be about the size of your clenched fist.
Mhm.
And it would look like any other woman's heart, that's like your age and height
Mhm.
and weight, right?
Mhm. Okay.
But if we could take your spirit body out of your physical body,
Mhm.
I believe that, it's a complete spiritual, like, what do you call it? It's like the foundation, but it's also a total duplicate of your physical body. So
Mhm.
you'd see a spirit heart in there.
Okay, got
But
it, got it, got it.
when you have a spirit, when your heart is broken, what you'll actually find is that the spirit heart, not the physical, but the spirit heart is actually broken. Sometimes it'll split
Oh,
completely in two
wow.
pieces.
Wow.
And then what's driving that and what's keeping that heart broken is emotional baggage, trapped emotions. And
Mhm.
sometimes, like in this case, this woman that we worked on recently, it was an inherited emotion. I think it was heartache from 13 generations ago. And so, but
Dang.
by clearing that and clearing one other thing, we were able to get her heart to just come right back together into one piece. And and it's amazing when you do this kind of work because people feel the difference and it's life
Mhm.
changing for people.
Yeah.
But the whole inherited emotion side, that whole aspect of this work is so fascinating because we all inherit emotional energies at conception,
Mhm.
and we get them from mom or dad, and they can get them, maybe they got them from their mom or dad, and these can go back for many, many generations. And what's fascinating is that in quantum physics, uh, one energy can be in an infinite number of places at one time. And so what we
Mhm.
find with these trapped emotions that are passed down the line, when we release one of these, it will release from everybody up the line, however many generations, 20, 30 generations, and down the line too. So let's
Mhm.
say that you have an inherited trapped emotion of, let's say it's panic, and you got it from 10 generations back from something that happened to some grandfather or grandmother of yours. And let's say
Mhm.
that you've got siblings and you've got kids, maybe
Mhm.
even grandkids, it would clear from everybody in the entire line in one shot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazingly powerful.
Amazing. I mean, I know when I remember using it with my clients, I was like, "Holy moly, it was powerful." They would come in the next week like, I don't know what we did. Can we do that again?" I'm like, "Yes, of course. Let's go." I want to talk a little bit more about emotions now that you're on this topic, though, because you talk about emotions being the root cause of most illnesses, and I align with that completely. I really,
Yeah.
really believe that, but there are some people out there that would say, "That's not true. Sometimes you just get, cancer or heart disease or whatever." What do you say about that?
Well, if you're in the medical profession, or if you're focused on Western biology,
Mhm,
then that would be true for you. But what I found when I was in practice, I mean, first of all, you have to open your mind to the possibility that there's more that we don't know about these
mhm,
bodies.
mhm,
And so when I was in my practice, look, I was just obsessed with helping my patients. I mean, I felt
mhm,
like that was what they were paying me for. And I
mhm,
wanted to really, I really was driven to figure out what the true underlying causes of their problems were. I didn't want to band aid them. I mean, look, I didn't have a license as a chiropractor. I didn't have a license to prescribe drugs to suppress their symptoms.
mhm,
I didn't have a license to do surgery on them to remove organs that were problematic. I was
mhm,
left with this dilemma of actually having to figure out what the real underlying causes were. And so that's what I did. I was asking for help all the time from up above, and I was also devouring everything that I could about any healing art or modality that had ever been thought of or looked at or used throughout
mhm,
history.
mhm,
And it didn't matter to me if something uh, was considered obsolete or not modern or whatever. I didn't care. I would try anything, and if something worked, then I would stick with that. But I'm
mm,
telling you right now that the absolute game-changing paradigm here is that we can ask the internal computer what it needs. And when we do that, and it's
mm,
so willing to give its answers and tell us what it needs,
mhm,
I mean, if we know that we can do that and we don't take advantage of that, I mean, then we must be out of our minds, because during all those years in practice, especially the last 10 years I was in practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all. That
mm,
what their problem, they were going to have to live with it, and they were never going to be able to get well. And not everybody gets well. And sometimes, sometimes some people are out of time. I mean, none of us live forever. We're all going to check out at some point.
mhm,
But I used to tell my patients, look, if you've learned what you need to learn from this problem, and if God is willing, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get well. And it didn't really matter. After a while, I got to a point where I didn't really care so much what people's symptoms were, because
mhm,
I knew the answers were locked inside of them. I remember once to give you an example. I had this patient that came in one day. It was a middle-aged woman, and she was dealing with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and her life was really kind of miserable. And I was in a little bit of a playful mood, and I looked at her and I said, "Well, listen," I said, "I'm basically clueless about, what's wrong with you." And she
mhm,
just looked at me, her eyes got really big, and I said, "But wait," I said, "It's okay." I said, "Your subconscious mind, the computer inside of you, knows exactly what's going on and why you're having all these symptoms, and I know how to talk to it, so it's going to be okay." See? And sure enough, she was able to get well. So,
do
um,
you that's such a common one. I ask you about that. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, that kind of thing. Did you find
yeah.
there was a pattern, or common emotional past issues or traumas that people had that would lead to that? I'm
Well, I'll
thinking
tell
like in the terms of
yeah,
Louise Hay. You know Louise Hay, "You Can Heal Your Life." She's like,
yeah.
"If you have this physical thing, typically these emotional things or thought patterns are going on." Did you find that too?
Not so much. I did find that they all had something in common with emotions. They all had a heart wall. Okay.
Yeah.
And of
Explain a
course,
heart wall for people that don't know your work. What's a heart
yeah.
wall?
Well, a heart wall is where the subconscious mind has put up a wall
Mhm,
made of emotional energy to try to
mhm,
protect the heart from being
mhm,
broken. And it's
mhm,
very common. About
mhm,
93% of people we find have put up this wall. And
mhm,
of course, the ancients believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love
mhm,
and creativity and romance and the core of our being and everything else. And in the West, if we ever think about those old beliefs at all, we're inclined to shake our heads and just think, well, those ancient people, they were so poetic. But now we know better. We know the heart is just a muscle. That's
mhm,
all it is. Well, guess what? That's not all it is, because now we're beginning to understand that the heart is really a second brain.
mhm,
It's full of gray matter and white matter, and there are, I mean, books written about heart transplant stories where people get a heart transplant and suddenly their taste in music and food and sports completely changes. They'll have memories of being in places that they have never in their life ever visited. And when they're connected with the family of the heart donors, they always find out things like, well, yes, our daughter visited Rome every year. And now you have memories of being in Rome and you say you've never ever visited there. So those are her memories, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah. Oh my
So
God, I love it.
yeah. So anyway, the subconscious mind will put up a wall around your heart if you're
Mhm,
going through an episode where you feel like your heart is going to break, and that's a physical sensation. I
mhm,
mean, that word heartache, that's describing a phenomenon that probably most of us, if not all of us, have felt at some point, right?
mhm, mhm,
And you might have to go back into your childhood, or maybe when you were going through a divorce or a breakup or whatever. But most of us have felt that physical sensation. And when that's going on, your heart is really under assault. And so the subconscious mind, in response, will build a wall. And that wall is made of layers of your emotional baggage. It's the craziest thing. It's been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine. And
mhm,
I didn't discover it. I mean,
mm.
it was shown to me, and the whole story is in the emotion code. I think it's in the body code book too. But what we find is that when we start removing those trapped emotions, and we take down enough of those, then all of a sudden, um, we become more capable of giving and receiving love.
Mm.
Many people have told us that for the first time in their life, when that wall is taken down, they can actually feel the love of the higher power for them.
Wow.
They can feel the love that sometimes they'll describe, the love that fills the universe, that I believe is running everything. The whole universe, I believe, is actually powered by love. I mean, it's amazing.
I agree.
So when we can align ourselves with that frequency, right, and tune ourselves
Mhm,
into that,
mhm.
gee, life starts to flow so much better for us, right?
I'm wondering, you want to do a demo with me? I'm like,
Sure.
let's show these people
Yeah.
how to do it in
Yeah, if
like
you
10
want to.
minutes. Like, can you do a quickie?
Oh,
You want to
absolutely.
do a quickie with me, Dr. Brett?
Absolutely. Say the word. Here
Let's
we
go,
go.
honey.
Can I share my screen with you?
Yeah, please. Here,
Okay.
let me make you co-host. Hold on.
All right.
Hold on. There you go. Yeah,
Excellent.
I want to let people see and experience this because it's truly profound and it's fast. And that's what I love about it too.
Oh, me too. I've always liked things that are really fast and efficient and effective.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Let me see if I can share my screen.
So if you can, you're going to show people, and, a lot of people listen to this, watch this, not on YouTube. They're just listening. So and for those
Yeah.
of you that are not watching, he's got his screen up.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking
The
at a
emotion
copy of the
code chart.
emotion code chart.
Yep.
Now, you can go on Google and you can just search emotion code chart and you'll
Yep.
find zillions of them. The chart consists of 60 emotions divided up into 2 columns and 6 rows. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And on the far
Yep.
left side, you'll see organs and glands that are listed, and that just matches where where these emotions are actually produced. The organs and glands in the body, we believe, are the
Mm-hmm.
frequency generators that generate these. Because if you think about it, like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And he was absolutely right. And so every emotion has its own specific frequency and vibration and so on.
Mhm.
So, all right, cool. Well,
So, and I love this. I just want to add to what the chart you have up. Yes, go Google it, but also if you have the book, whatever, wherever you get it. As
mhm,
a practitioner, when I would work with clients, I just had it on my phone. I had an image of it. So whenever I would do
yeah,
the emotion code, it was so quick and you can just pop it on your phone when you have the client and look down or put it on a piece of paper or something. So anyway,
yeah,
that's a side note.
absolutely.
All right.
The app online is called the Body Code System, and it has the emotion code chart in there. So, all right, here we go. So, do you have anything specific that you
You
want
know,
to?
something that, oh, I know what we can work on.
Okay.
So I've had really, gosh, for probably 10 years, I've noticed that my muscles are clamping down and they're really tight. And in the last few years, like my legs and my feet are so sore. It's hard sometimes to even walk. And that's my favorite thing to do. So I
Hmm.
stretch every day. I do all the things. I've done some past life clearing and I've done other things like that. I'm wondering if you get anything else on it. Let's just do that. That would be an easy one, I would think. Okay,
Uh,
so for those of you not on YouTube, he's actually typing this out. I love this. Okay.
yeah, I'm just making some notes here, and then I
Yeah.
can, if we find anything, I'll send you the notes.
Okay, cool.
So these muscles are in your mainly your lower extremities, your
It's
feet and
kind of like all
calves.
over, honestly, but yeah, in my feet and in my legs is where I really notice. Like I can go sit even if it's for 15 minutes, then I stand up and it's like a tight rubber band is what my insides feel like.
Wow, that's been going on. Sorry, for how long?
I've noticed for about 10 years I've been tight head to toe.
Okay.
But over the last few months, the tightness in my legs and my feet has gotten it's really bad. Like some days it's really hard to walk. And it feels like I don't know any other way to say it. It's a tight rubber band, really tight rubber band.
Oh,
So
that's interesting.
yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, I like to walk 5 miles a day and it's hard. Like I stretch and stretch and stretch and I walk and I come back and I'm a tight rubber band again.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Well, okay, so first of all, what we want to do is work on you remotely. Now,
Okay.
how does this work? Well, the subconscious mind has the ability to set aside its own needs to act on behalf of someone else. And so what we're going to do is just take a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll ask for some help just silently from up above. And while
Mm-hmm.
we're doing that, that should make the connection. And then I'll test it in just a second here. Here we go. All right, so now let's ask, and I'm going to be using muscle testing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using the ring and ring method, which is where you take a thumb of each hand and another finger, and you make two rings, put them together like a chain,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you ask a question, if the answer is yes, the rings stay together, and if the answer is no, the rings break apart. All right, so here we go. So
Mm-hmm.
let's ask, first of all, are we energetically connected? Okay. So in quantum physics, this is called entanglement. So our energies are entangled. There's no distance, no limitation on distance for this, as far as we know. And so we are connected. So now what I can do is I can ask questions, and I can get immediate answers that are actually coming from your subconscious mind to mine, and then manifesting on my body. So here we go. So let's ask, first of all, do you have a trapped emotion that we can release that's contributing to this problem? And I actually get a yes. Okay.
Ooh.
So now what we do, so that was a strong muscle test. I'm using the ring and ring method. Now we're going to look at our emotion code chart, and we're going to ask, okay, is this emotion in column A? And the answer is no. The rings break apart. So this emotion's in column B. Is it in one of the odd rows? Yes. Is it in is it in row 1 in column B? Or row 3? It's in row 3, column B. So that takes us down to 5 emotions. So you see how quickly we were able to narrow it down. We got rid of 55 emotions that we know
Mm-hmm.
are not it. Now we know it's got to be one of these 5. So is the emotion confusion or defensiveness? And these are both no. Is it grief or self-abuse or stubbornness? Guess what? Those were all no. And what that
Oh,
means is it means that this was actually an inherited trapped emotion. When we're taken to a column in a row and all the emotions are
wow.
negative, it's because the subconscious is taking you as far as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't get any further unless you actually use that word inherited. So is this inherited confusion or defensiveness? It's actually an emotion of grief. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All
I knew
right.
you were
So
going to
let's,
say that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's your intuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your intuitive engine kind of
Mm-hmm.
being tuned in and vibrating at that same frequency. So here we go. So where'd you get this from? Did you get this from your father? This came from your mother, it looks like. And did she get it from somebody earlier? Yes. So your mom, when she was conceived, got it from her father, actually. So your mother got it from her father. And does it go back even further from you? Yes. How many generations? Does it go back 5 generations from you? Yes. 10 generations? Yes. 15? No. 11? No. So exactly 10 generations from you, or roughly back to about, 1761 AD, give or take 20 or 30
Wow.
years.
Mhm.
And did this originate with a male or a female? Male? Nope, female. So it started with a grandmother. Okay.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. So now what's interesting about this, okay, is that um, you're having these symptoms right now. And it may very well be that if we were to go back 10 generations and interview that grandmother, uh, she might have been having the same exact symptoms around the same time of her life as you see.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
then, maybe a few years later or during that time, she conceives a child and shares the information about grief. Something happened to her. And I do believe,
Mhm.
Michelle, when you leave this world eventually, hopefully when you're, very old and very satisfied with your life, this is one of the people that you're going to meet. And you're going to be able to ask her, hey, what actually
Wow.
happened? And she'll tell you, well,
Wow.
she'll tell you the story.
I love that.
Isn't that cool? So here we go. Let's release this now. Now, the way
Okay.
that we release a trapped emotion like this, actually, by the way, let me ask you this. Do you have any kids?
2. 2
Two
boys.
kids, 2 boys. Okay. Did you pass this to either one of those boys? Yes. I'm
Ooh.
muscle testing again. Yes. Did you pass it to both of them? Yes. So they
Oh.
both got it when they were conceived from you. And that's not unusual when you have an inherited energy that's going down the line like this for a lot of years.
Mhm.
It'll just keep going and going and going until somebody, puts a stop to it. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a magnet,
Mm.
just a refrigerator type magnet. I'm going to put it on my forehead and I'm going to pass this over the top of my head to the back of my neck.
Mhm.
And we're going to do this 10 times, right? Because we do 10 swipes over the governing meridian
Mhm.
for an inherited trapped emotion. And I think that was 10. We'll do one more. And now let's ask, did we release that trapped emotion of grief from you? Yep. Did it get rid of it from your mom? Yep. And from her dad? Yep. And from all those generations? Yep. And from both your boys? Yep. Yep. Uh,
Dang.
yeah, that's how easy
That's
it is.
so cool.
They
Thank
don't
you.
have it anymore. Um, absolutely.
So
So
that's it. Like, then I won't feel any pain, or we don't know.
I don't know. You want to do another one?
Sure.
Let's do something
It was
else.
so
Okay.
fast.
It's so fast. Yes, it's so fast. So let's see. We got the emotion code chart up. Let's ask, do you have another trapped emotion that we can release that's contributing to this problem? Actually, no. So let's go to the body code. So
Okay.
now what I'm doing is I'm clicking. I'm on my desktop. I'm bringing up the body code mind map system. Okay, and anybody can use this. It's available for everybody. It's a subscription app. It's not very much money, and so we're looking at 6 different possibilities here. The 6 different categories of imbalances that I talked about before and showed you guys
Mhm.
the pictures.
Mhm.
So let's ask, there's something else going on here. And what is it? In other words, what we're asking is there another underlying reason for this trouble that you've been having with all this tightness? And the answer is yes. Is it something on the left side of this page? No. So it's something on the right side of the page. Is it a pathogen? It could be, but it's not. Is it a misalignment? It's a misalignment of something.
Ooh.
So now any tissue can misalign. So now we're looking at yet another map that shows all the possible misalignments, even including things like chakras and meridians. Anything can misalign, and all the tissues are represented here along with
Mhm.
energetic entities.
Interesting.
So is this something on the left side? No. Is it in the skeleton? Yes, it is. So we'll click on the skeleton picture. And now we break the
Mm.
skeleton up into 2 parts, appendicular and axial. Is it in the
Mhm.
appendicular skeleton? That's a no. So it's
Mm.
in the axial skeleton. So that includes the vertebral column, the skull, the teeth, and the thoracic cage. So it's one of these. Is it something in the vertebral column or the skull? It's something in the skull.
Oh.
So the plot thickens. So we have
Oh my
all these
gosh.
bones in the skull, right? And so Is it one of these bones that's on the left side of this page? Yes. So let's just go through these. Is it one of the facial bones or a middle ear bone? Is it the ethmoid? It's actually the sphenoid bone. So
Interesting.
if we click on that one, we're at the end of a rabbit trail here with the body code. We've been following it down. So now we get an explanation about what it is we found. And we now know, that this bone is not happy. This bone, by the way, is really important for the normal pumping of the cerebrospinal fluid, which bathes the brain and fills the ventricles of the brain, and also, you know, fills the
Mhm.
spinal column and protects the spinal cord. So this bone is very important for the pumping of that fluid. And
Mm.
all the bones of the skull are important. This one, you could argue that it's maybe the most important one. I don't know, but you could make that argument. So this bone makes it to the surface in a couple little spots right in here.
Oh, I can feel it. Oh my God.
Yeah, a couple little spots.
Before you touch that spot, I swear to you, I was feeling motion right here. I'm like, this is weird. And then you just touched them.
Really?
I was
That's
like,
cool.
I'm getting like not a headache, but I was like, that's weird. What's this? Oh my God.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. So, what's interesting about the skull? I mean, to me, the skull is the most beautiful. It's one of God's most beautiful creations because it's this unbelievably complex three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, right?
Mhm.
And all of these bones move very slightly, about 12 times a minute. The skull expands and contracts. And in fact, when I was in practice, my wife used to assist me. And we had a number of people that we worked on who had eyes that were unlevel. And we
Mhm.
would work with them and realign the bones of their skull to a point where their eyes would level out, or we could get them almost level again. Really amazing. You've seen people
Wow.
like that, right? They're walking down the street and you look at them and
Yes.
like looking at a Picasso. Like, wait,
Yes.
what happened to that guy? Well, yeah, those bones can move. So now we are at the association step here. We want to ask, is there an associated imbalance that needs to be decoded here? And the answer is yes. So in other words, this bone is not happy. It's not moving correctly. We could call it out of
Mhm.
alignment, but there's another reason why. And so we go back to the homepage on the body code. And now we're looking at the 6 main categories again. Let me just make a really quick note here. Sphenoid bone, misalignment, and it's associated with something. What is it? Is it something on the right side of the chart? No, it's on the left side. Is it in the energies area? It is. Okay. Is something on the left side? Yes. Is it something post-traumatic? Actually, yes. And
Mhm.
is it on the left side of this page? Yes. So when you're using the body code at any given time, you're just really asking the binary questions. Is it on the left or on the right? Is it this or
Yeah.
is it this?
Yeah.
It's really simple, but it you can get to the bottom line really quickly. So is this a physical trauma energy? Actually, it is.
Oh.
So let me tell you this. Let me tell you a story about this. Okay, how this one was discovered. Um, so let's see here. Back when I was in practice, a man came in one day. He was 42 years old. He told me that 4 years before he'd been in a car wreck. He was stopped at a stoplight and another guy ran into the back of his car at a high rate of speed and really damaged his car and really injured his neck. And he said that after 4 years, he'd seen two doctors, but that his neck still hurt like the day after the accident. And that it was, he said that his neck was a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, after 4 years, that's weird. And so my habit was to ask for help. So I just silently said, all right, Father, this seems kind of strange to me. There's something else going on that I should know about. Help me to know what it is, right? And boom, this answer floods in. And the answer was that the energy that was released in the accident that crumpled the fenders and bent the frame of his car, some
Mm.
of that energy actually got stuck in his neck and was still there 4 years later. And I thought, no way. So I swiped down his back a few times to release that physical trauma energy. And I said, okay, how's it feel now? He looks left and right and up and down and tilts his head and he says, how did you do that? And I said, well, how's it feel? And he said, well, I'd say it's about a 2. Didn't go to a
Wow.
0, but it went to about a 2. And I said, well, when's the last time it felt that good? And he said, oh, before the accident. So,
Dang.
so
That's amazing.
yeah. So let's ask, do we need to identify more about this energy? We don't really. Is there anything associated? Not really. So what I'm going to do is, again, just take a magnet. You can also use your hand if you don't have a magnet, but I have a magnet, so we'll use a magnet. And I'm going to swipe again from the forehead over the top of my head, just 3 times in this case, to release that energy. And let's ask, did we release that energy? And we did. So something happened to you at some point in your life. It could have been a car accident. It might have been a surgery. It could have been a fall or even some kind of intense illness. But that's what was going on with you. You had a physical trauma, and it might not at all have been a blow to the head. It could have been a blow to some other part of the body. I mean, it could have been from childbirth. It could have been from practically anything. But sometimes that energy will just kind of boom, land somewhere, and that's where it landed. And so let's
Dang, that's
ask,
so cool.
yeah. So did we release the physical trauma? We did. Now, if we look at the sphenoid bone that was out of alignment, is that bone still out of alignment? No. So if you stand up and walk around for a minute, you can
You
if
want me
you,
to do it?
yeah, why don't you do that? Stand up, walk around for just a minute,
All right.
and just notice how you're feeling, how your head feels, how your legs feel. If you feel anything, and any shifts going
A
on in the
little bit.
body.
Yeah. They are definitely my feet, my feet would even get tight. If I sit for like even 10 minutes, my feet would start to go, and I don't
Yeah.
feel that as much right now, I have to say, to be
Good.
honest. I'm not
Good.
feeling my feet get so tight.
Yeah.
And my legs are a little looser too. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Well, it's interesting because see, your subconscious mind here has told us 2 of the things that were actually causing that, your feet to be like that. One of them was the grief emotion. And how that exactly that was affecting you, I don't know. But then that sphenoid bone, when that bone gets out of alignment, you can have interference going on in the brain itself. So a
Mm,
lot of things, it's like you get like a little electrical storm going on in there in the brain, and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, all kinds of things can be affected.
dang. Thank
So
you so much.
sure, absolutely. Is there anything else that we can, do you have any other underlying reasons for this right now? No, I think this is very likely this will actually just fix that. You'll just have to let me know. Okay. But usually fixing things like this is usually not that big of a deal if you can figure out what the actual causes are, and you never know what they're going to be. That's the fun thing about this, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I
You never
love
know.
this so much because, again, if I were to go to the doctor, I mean, God only knows I'd be on steroids or medication. I'm like, no. And I keep coming back to exactly what you said. I'm like, this is emotional. This is energetic. There's something going on. And a question I have around that, and then we're going to bring the audience on, if that's
Mhm.
okay with you. We're going to do some
Sure.
Q&A right now.
Mhm.
Question I have though. So what came up was grief.
Mhm.
Does that mean like that my mother doesn't have it came down my mother's side. So my mother doesn't have it never went through any sort of physical tightness, nor did my dad. Not, but you said it was on my mom's side. Would it be that I went through grief because I did have some grief this year that might have triggered it? Or is it just random when we don't know why we suddenly get these things that come up?
Yeah, I mean, we don't always know. I mean, the thing about it is, it's kind of like if you have a glass of water, okay, and
Hmm.
it's almost full, and it's going to take 10 more drops of water for it to overflow.
Yeah.
And so you put in those 10 drops, and on the 10th one it overflows. Well, which one made it overflow? The first one you put
Hmm.
in or the 10th one?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, well, you don't always know, but the beautiful thing about the body code is that it makes it easy to find these things and and remove them
Oh, I
and
love it.
yeah, that
I
was kind of
love
fun.
it. Well,
How does that feel in there now? Now that
it
that bounce
actually, I, okay, here's the word that comes to me. And when I feel my temples now, it feels, this is a weird word, but spacious.
that's a good one actually.
It's like if it was tight before, it feels looser and
Yeah.
open.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
Good.
like there's space. Like, not that I'm an airhead, but you know what I mean? Like it's like more space. I don't know.
Yeah. That's
Wild.
actually yeah. It's sometimes hard to describe.
It
Isn't
is.
that
It's
isn't
hard
that
but
fun?
I can tell you right before you touched your temples, I was like, God, I feel this pressure in my temples. It's so bizarre. And then you went like
Isn't that
this. I said,
fun?
there it is. Unbelievable. All right, so we're going to bring our guests on from the academy, but
Okay.
before we do that, for the people that are not coming on, I just want to say first of all, thank you. Thank you for the work that you've put into the world because again, I've personally used the emotion code. I haven't used it in about 5 years because I don't see clients anymore, but I loved it and I know many people that use it. So thank you for that work. Whoops, we lost you that you put into the world. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just lost your video.
I think my camera just turned off or something for a second. It should be coming right back up here.
That's
Yep.
okay.
There. Sorry.
Anyway, I just want to say thank you for all that you put into the world because I love both of these. And my friend used to do the body code on me. So tell us, where can people find you if they want to learn more about this, if they want to take trainings, if they want to buy the books, all the things. Where would people find you?
Well, our main website is called discoverhealing.com.
Okay.
And that's where all the information is, and we do
Mhm.
certification training.
Perfect.
The certifications are done mostly online. So
Mhm.
emotion code certification, that's level 1.
Mhm.
Body code's level 2. We have a new program now that's called the belief code,
Mhm.
and that's really exciting. That's level 3 certification. So the other
Right.
two are prerequisites, but the belief code is really fun because we're able to find negative belief systems that people have
Mm.
about themselves or the world or other people, and just knock them right out really efficiently. There's never been anything like it before. Really
Oh my
fun.
God, I love it. So discoverhealing.com, everything can be found there. And of course, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, we can get your books anywhere, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on today.